Hello everyone, it's almost PR season again. In about a month's time, another handful of paper ships, or paper ships, will be revealed as part of a yearly collaboration with World of Warships for us to research. So today, I'm going to go wave by wave and break down the origins of each of these research ships. So, without further ado, let's get started. Starting with PR1, we have Neptune. Neptune is the lead ship of the Design Y light cruisers. Initially designed towards the end of World War II as an upgraded Crown Colony class AA cruiser, they will be redesigned as an upgraded Belfast under the orders of new First Lord of the Admiralty Andrew Cunningham, who disliked the smaller designs. Central to the design was a new quick-firing 152mm Mark IV gun mounted in 4 triple dual-purpose Mark 25 mounts. These would be joined by 4 quadruple torpedo launchers and an improved propulsion plant to retain a 32-knot top speed. Following on from Neptune's Monarch. Margie makes it especially clear Monarch is based off design 15C of the King George V class, treating her like she's their long-lost sister. Due to not wanting to violate the various naval treaties, and not wanting to wait on the development of a new 381mm gun, delaying the construction of new battleships, she was passed over in favour of the 356mm design we eventually got. Ibuki is an interesting one. She's a lead ship of a class of heavy cruisers ordered by Japan near the start of World War II. They're essentially an improved Mogami class, however only Ibuki got anywhere. Interestingly, Ibuki was almost actually built, albeit as an aircraft carrier, who was converted following the loss of 4 carriers at Midway. Her construction would be paused at around 80% complete in order to focus on coastal defence subs, which would be scrapped a few years later. Zumo is a Yamato preliminary, designated A140J2. Japan really liked the Nelson-style turret layout, as many of the Yamato preliminary designs were laid out that way. Izumo is one of the smallest Yamato designs, being one of the few that would have been armed with 410mm guns, compared to the 460s on most other designs, as well as the final product. Ruin is a gun. That's it. Wargaming found a design drawn up by Krupp in 1938 of a triple turret that would house the same guns as the Admiral Hipper class. It is essentially a Nuremberg class upscaled to fit the triple 203 turrets, a mix of 150 and 105mm secondary guns, and an assortment of 20 and 30mm AA. The final ship in PR1, St. Louis, was designed for a heavy cruiser unbound by the treaties. Based on the preceding Aldry class, she would have introduced a triple turret, allowing for an extra gun over her predecessors, despite having fewer turrets. Larger and faster than Aldry, with armour thicker in some areas and thinner in others, it would have been the lead ship of a 6-ship class. Moving on to PR2, we start with Seattle. From what I can tell, she appears to be based on a design from 1941 of a light cruiser armed with dual-purpose triple versions with a Mark 16 152mm gun. This design, designated 6-inch AA Cruiser Scheme A, would eventually be developed into the Worcester class. Georgia is based on Scheme 4 of the Iowa class, fitted with twin 457mm guns. These guns were rejected due to their heavy weight, limiting them to twin mounts unless the US compromised on armour, speed, or the ability to pass through the Panama Canal, none of which they were willing to do. Kitakaze is a further development of the Akizuki class AA destroyers. They would feature a greater arsenal of AA guns. There were plans to be 16 initial ships, with a further 7 to come later. However, in 1942 the initial batch would be reordered as Akizukis, and a further 7 as an improved Shimakaze class. None of these ships would get built, and through refits to the initial Akizuki's AA firepower would surpass the cancelled Super Akizukis. Azuma represents the Project B-65 large cruisers. These cruisers were designed to replace the Pongo-class battle cruisers and take over their role in the decisive battle doctrine as escorts and fire support. Armed with 9 310mm guns, 16 100mm dual-purpose secondaries and a number of 25mm AA, they would bear a striking resemblance to the Yamato-class battleships. They would have a top speed of 33 knots and be protected by 190mm of armour sloped at 20 degrees. Initially 4 were planned, but wartime revisions called for 6 ships to be built. However, due to shifting wartime priorities, none would end up being built. Friedrich de Gross is Wargamer's interpretation of an H-class battleship. Designed to be the successor to the Bismarck class, featuring greater firepower and improved fire control radars. likely similar to the ones found on Tirpitz late into the war. They were largely similar to the Bismarcks, featuring identical secondary and anti-air batteries to their predecessors as well as the same top speed. An attempt to fix design flaws was made, the armour belt was extended, and the 155mm guns were fully enclosed, with more space for loaders to work. 6 were found, but only 2 were laid down, and both would end up getting scrapped. Finally for PR2, Gascogne, the fourth Richelieu sister. Following Jean Bart, the French began to tinker with the design for the Richelieu class. Clemenceau would have her secondary battery reduced and rearranged in addition to new 100mm automatic dual-purpose guns. Gascogne, on the other hand, would receive a much more drastic modification. One of her main battery turrets would be relocated to the back of the ship in a more conventional layout. In addition to this, her secondaries would be relocated to fire over her main battery turrets, freeing up space on the side for improved AA guns. It was planned to be laid down in August 1939, but material shortages delayed her construction, and the invasion of France postponed it indefinitely. Up next, PR3. Cheshire is the first of these ships and is based on an early war heavy cruiser proposal. With the outbreak of World War II, Winston Churchill returned as First Lord of the Admiralty, and was immediately ordered new cruiser designs to combat German Deutschland and Admiral Hipper classes. Designed to be armoured against 203mm shells, armed with 203 or 234mm guns, and reach a top speed of 32 to 33 knots. Cheshire is based on one of the smaller designs, but has her 3 triple 203mm turrets replaced with twin 234mm mounts. Drake is next and belongs to the same design study as Cheshire. Being a larger design at 21,500 tons, she boasts thicker armour, a slightly higher top speed of 33.5 knots, and a greater main battery of 9 234mm guns and 3 triple mounts. Mines is the half-sister to the Admiral Hipper class heavy cruisers. Following the 3 Hippers, Germany wanted to lay down 2 more cruisers of a slightly modified design. In order to avoid provoking the British, they were disguised as light cruisers armed with 12 150mm guns, as opposed to 8 203s, similarly to the Japanese Mogami class. Historically, they were built with 203mm guns, but neither would enter service. Mines is basically the light cruiser armament as an actual ship as opposed to a deception. Odin is based on a preliminary proposal for the Scharnhorst class, intended as a counter to the French Dunkirks, displacing 26,500 tons and armed with 9 305mm guns. Interestingly, one of the 305mm guns was actually built, but never entered service. PR3 ends with Champagne. Champagne is essentially Gascogne, but is equipped with a pair of triple 406mm guns in place of the quad 380s. France was actually working on a 406mm gun design for the Soviets. One of the proposed designs for the Alsace-class battleships was also equipped with them, but no actual production work had been carried out. PR4 opens with Anchorage, based on the CAB project. Prior to entering into World War II, the US Navy was examining heavy cruiser designs featuring greater speed, armour and firepower than their existing cruisers. CAB was a compromise design. CAA would meet the armour and speed requirements but would keep the same 9 203mm gun configuration, and CAC would meet all 3 but would be excessively large. CAB would meet the armour and 12 gun firepower requirements, but its speed would fail to meet the 35 knot goal instead of reaching 33 knots. Anchorage also features torpedoes, something the US heavy cruisers had long since stopped carrying. The US's entry into World War II would cancel these designs in favour of the Baltimore, Oregon City and Des Moines classes. Hakuryu was next and based on the Japanese G-15 project. The G-15s were a planned 5-ship class of carriers that were essentially an upgraded Taiho, featuring improved AA, strengthened torpedo protection, a slight hull enlargement and a number of other upgrades and fixes to the initial design. Aegir is a returreted O-class battlecruiser. The O-class were a group of 3 28,900-ton battlecruisers designed under Plan Z. They were designed to reach a top speed of 33.5 knots and be protected by relatively thin armour, armed with 6 380mm guns across 3 twin turrets. Wargaming swapped the twin 380s for the same 305mm guns found on Odin and reclassified her from battlecruiser to large cruiser. August von Parzival is an aircraft carrier based on either a potential revised design or hypothetical refit of Graf Zeppelin, featuring a new propulsion plant and the removal of the 150mm surface-only secondary batteries. Rounding out PR4 is Marco Polo. Marco is based on the Ansaldo UP-41, a late 1930s project for a more Atlantic counterpart to existing Littorios. It is larger and heavier than their predecessors and was designed with thicker armour. However, it should be noted that Marco herself here has the same protection as the Littorios. She would reach a top speed of 32 knots and would be armed with 3 triple 406mm 50 caliber guns. It is basically an Italian Iowa, and combined with the Italian fuck barrel life more power battleship gun philosophy, was absolutely robbed of being a DR. The fifth, and at the time of writing, final DR wave opened with Plymouth. Plymouth is based on the initial design of the Edinburgh subclass of town-class cruisers, armed with a heavy main battery of 16 152mm guns housed in 4 quadruple turrets, as well as the same respectable speed and armour found on the final Edinburghs. Due to difficulties in manufacturing the new quad turrets, the plan was scrapped and the triples were kept. Prinz Ruprecht is based on the GK 4541 design drawn up during the second half of World War I, given a hypothetical modernisation. It differs slightly from her initial designs by having a slightly lighter main battery of 8 460mm guns, compared to the 420s of the initial design. Additionally, she is also equipped with a more modern and numerous secondary battery of 6 twin casement-mounted 150mm guns and 10 twin 105s. She also has a greatly improved AA and torpedo armament. Harbin is a Soviet AA cruiser design designated Mk6, which wargaming things could have been transferred to China had it been built. It was intended to be a long-range, small light cruiser that could fight enemy destroyers, provide anti-air, and perform various fire support roles with its 5 twin 130mm dual-purpose guns. Chkalov is one of the Project 71 aircraft carrier designs. The initial design of 71A was a light carrier based off of the Chapayev class cruisers and was designed mid-1939. By December that same year, a full-size fleet carrier design, Project 71B, was ready, being instead based on the Kronstadt class. This Project 71B is the basis for Chkalov. The final ship of this video is Brest. Brest is basically a Dunkirk-class battlecruiser with a fictional retrofit and reclassed as a large cruiser. She has less armour than her battlecruiser counterpart, but is 2 knots faster, clocking in at 31.5 knots. She also features a new 139mm dual-purpose secondary battery and modern Bofors and Oerlikon AA guns. And that's all of them. Every research shipped origins. Honestly, I was expecting more fantasy designs, but the ones picked are all either real designs, alternate designs, or fantasy turret swaps. So well done to whoever chose these. I'll probably make a short follow-up when PR6 gets announced detailing their origins, but today I'm going to leave it here. So, I'll catch you later.